Hello. Today I want to talk about running your healing business / healing offerings without having a dedicated physical clinic as such. Now, some of you may think that you have to rent or buy a premises to run a healing business or a healing offerings, healing space, for things like massage, kinesiology, psychology, sound healing, tarot card reading, whatever, this list could go on and on and on. Now, I am aware that if you are sitting within a very much sort of mainstream, if that's the term I can use, medical practice, then you will probably have some kind of requirements for things like that. So I will let you do your own research on that. However, if you are offering a healing that may be considered alternative, or whatever word you want to use for that, then you may find that there's not as many sort of regulations in regards to where you run your business and how you are able to meet and conduct yourself with your clients. And of course, yes, you can buy or rent a premises exactly just for your healing business, your healing offerings, and that's okay. There's nothing necessarily wrong or bad about doing it. However, I just wanted to share some options with you if you do not wish to buy or rent a specific premises for such offerings, or you're finding that it's not financially viable for you to do so, or maybe you're on the road a lot, that sort of thing. So, nomadic, should I say. So one option is obviously to convert a space already within your living space. That could be something like a spare bedroom, maybe there's a lounge, you might have a really nice backyard, maybe you live in a bus, and that sort of thing. You can convert what it is that you have into a space. And if it's something like your lounge, then obviously each time that you're going to have a client come over, you will need to probably rearrange things like furniture and prepare the space. Whereas if it's like a dedicated room that you only ever use for that, then there's not normally a lot of changing around. And that's okay. Each has its own benefits or not so benefits with those options. So yes, you can use the space in which you already have to run your business doing that. Another option is public nature spaces. Yes, I am aware that it can be a little bit more difficult to contain or control, or whatever term you want to use, the space and the energy in places like that. However, some of us are aware that when there are slight interruptions with that, that's often actually a sign of other things that can help actually instigate further healing or further lessons, or whatever you want to call it, for you and or your client. So, public nature spaces, I'm talking about things like beaches, rivers, so creek beds, lakes, national parks, the list can go on and on and on. And yes, some of those places may have a lot of other humans that like to visit. However, you may find places in which there's very irregular visits by humans to those spaces and places. And especially if you're living, nomadically, maybe in a van, then those kind of places may be very good for you. If you're traveling around, and you will find beautiful spots out in nature, and especially if you like to get away from where a lot of people like to visit, then you will find some very beautiful places to be able to run your business from. And people love usually coming to those places too. So obviously some of these places may not have very good internet connection, and if you're having to do video calls or video consultations, or phone calls with your clients, then of course that may not be suitable. However, it's just one option for you to expand your, I guess, awareness about. Now, another option is actually sharing a space with other healers. So they could be like, you could be co-renting a space with them, or they could rent the space to you. And I do have some friends who have a room in which they all share for running healing sessions with their clients. They all have their own healing modalities, and they like to pick a day or two a week in which they go, okay, on Thursdays is my day, and I will have my healing sessions with my clients. They can book in with me at the house in that special space, and they have their own sort of house guidelines, you know, like, oh, I've got a client coming in at 10, like, it's okay if everyone's nice and quiet, all of that sort of thing, and that can work really well. Or you may find a friend or an acquaintance or someone who, a friend of someone else who may actually have a dedicated healing space that they have for a lot of their clients, but they may wish to rent out that room to another healer. It could be a couple of days a week, and then you can rent that from them. So that's another option as well. And one more option is providing your services in alternative spaces such as markets and or festivals. Now, I am aware that those spaces can sometimes be a little loud, there can sometimes be a lot going on, but if you feel like you're very strong in creating a safe space for yourself and your clients, then that will not be an issue at all. And yes, I do have a lot of friends that will offer their healing sessions at, you know, could be weekly markets, and also at you know, small music lifestyle festivals as well. And that's also another great way to get new clients, or people that may have not normally, you know, wouldn't find you necessarily online, but they're just out to get their weekly silver beet and apples, or, you know, they're at a music festival with their friends. It's another way to I guess put yourself out there in a sense. And then the last one I sort of wanted to mention touches on a little bit about the national parks or public, I guess, nature spaces, is that I like to sometimes actually visit a local park near me. It sits right next to a river, and there's, you know, there'll be people around, and there's a few picnic tables and a few playgrounds, but the space is very large, and it has a footpath in which runs through the whole park, and you will often get people walking past, and I will normally pick a space in there in which I will actually set up my healing modalities. Like, I'll bring down my outside bed for Reiki and sound journeys, and I'll bring all my instruments out, and I will put up a sign that says, you know, what I'm offering. I'll also chalk it onto the footpath, so if anyone, you know, on a Saturday morning or whatever time I choose, spontaneously feels like having a session, or what I do find is there'll actually be people that may not even have any idea what it is that you're offering. So they'll be curious as to what you're offering, and they may have never even heard of the healing modalities in which you are also offering. But with that, I find it's this kind of special moment happens where they feel a little bit of a synchronicity, or I do too as well, should I say, of, oh, I never knew what Reiki was. Oh, what does Reiki do? Oh, and they may, you know, speak to you further, or they go home and they look into it, and whether they book a session with you or not, you've planted a seed of some sorts in which that could grow into all sorts of things that may lead them onto a path of who knows what. And, you know, I have had clients that have come back and they've, you know, really changed even just a matter of a few months. You know, they've just started out a particular path or journey, and it's really exciting to be there sort of at the start of that process, you know, because you really are reaching out and touching more of the public in a sense when you are offering your services in a space like that. And you know what, maybe you don't feel comfortable giving your sessions, or maybe you want to give them I usually give a shorter session, so I prefer to work with my clients for an hour, or if it's a Reiki and a sound journey combined, it might be like an hour and a half, 90 minutes. But in a place like that, I would probably give them more of a 30-minute session, and if they wanted to have a more in-depth session or a session in my own healing space, my spare room that I have where I live currently, then they can book in with me for that too, or book another session in the public space again. So yeah, there's just some ideas, so that, you know, if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed with like, oh my god, I've now got to go out and purchase a different property, or because my house I live in hasn't got a perfect room, or I now need to go purchase a separate premises somewhere else away from my house, or rent, either of those things that I just said. Don't necessarily have to. Although, like I said at the start, if your modality sits more within the sort of mainstream medical framework, then you'll probably find that there will be certain requirements that you may have to follow. So yes, you may still be able to work with what I've just offered here, but you will probably need to just check the guidelines or the requirements for things like that as well. So yeah, and one thing I wanted to mention, you will find that some people prefer being in very contained sort of, spaces like inside with your healing modalities, whereas some people might find that they're actually more comfortable out in nature with a big, wider, open space. And depending on your modality will depend on whether you can work with both of those, or you really only need to, you can really only work in quite a private sort of space, because I am aware that some of you, and I have friends that work in healing modalities such as like yoni massage, where it's a healing modality in which you cannot have any interruptions sort of whatsoever with those sort of things, especially if the person's having to take maybe clothes, or there's particular touch that might be involved with the healing modality and whatnot. So, yeah, obviously again, things that need to be considered depending on your healing modality. If you've got any ideas that you want to share or any questions, you're welcome to leave those in the comment section down below. If you don't feel comfortable sharing those publicly, you can reach out to me on my you can privately message me, obviously through email, and there's other social media outlets, and they're in the description box down below, and I will see you in the next vlog.